crossing can be a little treacherous. If you've never crossed an Asian street, I say Asian street because I think it's the same in Vietnam, it's the same in Philippines. There's a sense of like you just have to own it.
And
people will stop or they'll slow down for you, but you can't hesitate.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in. Continuing with our country deep dives, this week we are answering the question, how do I world school in Indonesia? This is one of my favorite topics, and I am biased because I am Indonesian, but I'm really excited to dive into this episode.
Yeah, I think the thing you mentioned too, along with Mexico, we've spent the most time in Indonesia. So Mexico and Indonesia are 2 places that we love going back to again and again.
Yeah. Oh, and then I also want to mention that we've decided to break this out into 2 episodes. So this episode, we're talking about Indonesia in general, and next episode, we'll mention or talk about Bali. So we won't focus on Bali here, but it will be talked about too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Logistics. So I think like other episodes, we'll just talk about Jakarta is the main city. The other islands also have airports that you can fly into as well. Usually the other airports, though, I don't think are international. The Bali airport's international.
Yeah.
Yes. Are. But the Lombok one, I don't think is international.
No, they're more like regional ones.
Yeah.
And even like Jogjakarta has an airport that maybe has flights from Singapore, but it doesn't have any other.
That's true. I guess Singapore is technically international. It feels still a little bit domestic because it's so close. I mean, Singapore is really close as far as flying in. So chances are you're going to fly into Jakarta. Even if you are going to Bali, sometimes tickets are cheaper to fly into Jakarta first. Jakarta is a huge city, one of the largest cities in the world. I think it's in the top 5 largest cities of the world.
Millions and millions of people, tens of millions of people.
I think over 20 million. Yeah. So it is a massive city. It's also a massive city geographically. It is spread out over a long distance. Traffic is incredibly hard in Jakarta.
Yep.
I would say there's 2 cities, in my opinion, that have the worst traffic in the world, and it's Manila and Jakarta. And so, at least from what we've been to. So
it can take you several hours just to go like 10 miles. So,
yeah. So that's just to say, if you are planning on visiting Jakarta a bit, and we highly recommend it. Jakarta, we'll talk about that in a minute, but like we highly recommend visiting Jakarta. Prepare yourself to it's going to take some time, especially getting from the airport. And depending when you fly in, if you fly in really late at night, you probably won't have to deal with as much traffic going to your hotel or whatever. But if you're flying in any other time of the day, it's possible you'll get stuck in traffic.
Well, with that said, there are some ways that the government or like the city has tried to like combat some of that traffic. The main one is this like the MRT, which goes right now. It just goes like north to south from like central or I think like from central Jakarta down south. Because once you get to central Jakarta, you still have to do other modes of transportation to get north. Yeah. And then like in our ride sharing episode, Grab is a app that you can use to get around in Jakarta. And that's like, Indonesia or Southeast Asia's version of like Uber.
They don't really have Uber, I don't think.
They don't have Uber there. They have Grab. And then the other one is more local. It's called Gojek. And then that's also, you download the app and you can get around and like connect a payment method and stuff. So
I think both of those are really good to have because sometimes one or the other is not available. Gojek is spelled Gojek, just in case you're checking. But like they also do, just like Uber here in the United States, they do food delivery as well. You can pay by cash or via the app.
Yeah.
So
and I forget if it's Grab or Gojek. One of them, you can hail a cab, the Bluebird taxis, through that app too.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you can't get like a regular ride, then just get a taxi.
And there are multiple cab companies. Bluebird is the one we recommend. It's the most recognizable. It's been there forever. That's all through Indonesia, so Bali as well. Bluebird taxis are kind of your go-to taxis on that.
Let's talk a little bit about the language.
Yes.
So Indonesia, the official language is Indonesian, but every island has like their own ethnic groups or multiple ethnic groups, and they also have their languages that are spoken there. But if you learn some Indonesian phrases, you should be able to get around the country.
All the younger people speak Indonesian. A lot of people speak English at this point, but you're still going to find that, most people, even if they do speak a little English, are hesitant to speak English as much, unless you're in like retail. There's a lot of English in retail or restaurants. Additionally, Indonesia, I think, is a little bit unique as far as language goes because their unionized language or their collective language, Indonesian, is still less than 100 years old.
Yeah, actually, it's 100 now. It was created in the 20s, 1920s.
Yeah.
So it's over 100 years old. But yes, it's a very new language and constantly evolving. The youth always have their like slang and stuff. If you want to learn some phrases, I do have an Indonesian phrase book on my website. So check that out.
Yeah, and I would say actually Indonesian is one of the easier languages to pick up simple phrases. And so I think at least a lot of the families we've known that will travel to Indonesia, especially just go to Bali, they're hesitant to try to pick up the language. I think it maybe because it's an Asian country, they feel like it's hard. Actually, it's really easy to pick up simple phrases, especially for Westerners. It uses the same alphabet as Western alphabet. So, and the pronunciation is really clear. There's not, in fact, I think in a lot of ways it's easier to learn Spanish. So I think it behooves you to learn a few things, especially like thank you, the numbers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
then the currency is called rupiah, and they have like, mostly the bills are like in hundreds or thousands. So
yeah, and I think it's like it's similar to pesos. It's a lot. The $1 to rupiah is a lot. I can't remember exactly what the exchange is, but it's not like euros where it's like pretty close to one-on-one. So just keeping that in mind, you may need your conversion app to just do some conversions as you're pulling cash out. It's mostly cash based. I think.
Yes.
Just like Mexico, it's very cash based, especially if you start going to some of the food vendors and stuff like that. And it's okay to get cash. I mean, not okay. Obviously, it's okay to get cash. It's a little bit in the metropolitan areas. I think it's easier to find ATMs, but it can get trickier in the smaller towns.
Yep. Yeah, I do remember like we were in Ahmed in Bali, and the one ATM, and maybe it was because we had like so many foreigners there at the time, but the one ATM in town would run out of money and everybody would be like, oh no, now we have to like borrow money from like other families that were there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the religion, because I think that is something that like makes people a little bit hesitant to come to Indonesia.
Yeah, I can speak to this because I didn't grow up in a Muslim culture. I don't think it caught me off guard, but it's a different experience if you're not used to that.
So Indonesia, the majority of the country is Muslim, like 80%.
So what that translates to for someone that's not used to it is you'll hear the call to prayer every day, multiple times a day. including really early in the morning, 5 a.m. roughly. I love it. I love hearing that. I don't know. There's just something about it. But if you're not used to that, it can be loud
Yeah.
depending on where you're staying. And it is early in the morning and it is throughout the day. And so it is something that you need, don't try to record your podcast at certain times of the day. You're going to get a call prayer in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you ever feel, and I agree with you, like I spent my childhood in Indonesia, in Jakarta. And so that was never really like, it wasn't jarring to me because I'm like, oh yeah, 6 o'clock. Of course, the call to prayer is going to go. And I love that. Like, I don't know. I just, especially during like Ramadan and stuff, I love the liveliness that happens around that time of day and around like the mosque. So I'm going to ask you kind of, maybe it's a leading question, but did you ever feel like threatened or unsafe being in a Muslim country?
I'm glad you asked this. No, I did not. And I think there is a stigma in the Western countries like United States about Islam in general. And, justified or not, there is a stigma. Indonesia has per capita, I think, the largest Muslim population in the world. The island of Java specifically, in Jakarta, I think is one of, if not the largest Muslim city in the world. But all the time we spent in Jakarta, I've never felt unsafe because of the religion.
Yeah.
In general, it's always and if you don't have any experience with Islam, is like, it's actually a very giving and loving religion, very accepting religion, and you feel that for the most part in Indonesia, in Jakarta, in Jogja. Now, I think that country has kind of some of you could call it a stereotype of like, I think because people work so hard, there is a little bit of like just a stoicism, or kind of
Yeah.
it comes across as standoffish, but never unfriendly.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, so I never felt that.
Yeah.
Was there more or something else you wanted to say around
No,
that?
I think you touched on the stigma around Islam and it being, especially, Americans, and it's been over 20 years since September 11th, but we still carry a lot of like prejudices or biases against Muslims in general. But I do want to say though that if you're like LGBTQ or trans, or there is a little bit of safety considerations to think about if you do plan to visit Indonesia because of the laws that exist there against gay marriage or just against homosexuality in general. So
that's the one part I would say tread carefully.
Yeah.
That and drug use. I think
Right.
any sort of drug use can also get you into some really bad hot water.
Yeah, there are
quickly.
some very strict laws. With that said, I think if most families will have a very positive experience when they come to Indonesia.
Yeah, I think there's a level of, when we go to Mexico, there's a level of conservatism also as far as how you dress and things like that. But I don't think it's as pronounced. When you go to Jakarta or Jogja, both big cities in Java, the island of Java, there is, and actually in Bali too, when we talk about Bali, we'll also talk about conservatism there, even though it's not respected as much. But in Jakarta and Jogjakarta, there is definitely a conservatism that you probably should respect, if nothing else, just to kind of fly under the radar. Our one of our travel philosophies is to fly under the radar,
Right.
and so I think don't don't wear too revealing clothing. And I know to Western sensibilities that sounds like, oh, no one can censor me, that kind of thing. But like, just respect. I mean,
Well, it actually is the same for men too, like modest clothing for men as well.
yeah, yeah. It's not just women.
Muscle shirts. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So I've worn shorts a lot. I don't think shorts are really necessarily frowned upon, or if they are, no one really calls you out on that. So that's my Western clothing that I always wear is shorts, just because I get really hot. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the only thing. So safety wise, when it comes to the religion, we've heard families say that like outside of Bali, it doesn't really feel like the rest of Indonesia is safe or whatever. That is totally just a stigma. I just want to call bull on that because we've never had an issue. It could be just because you're Muslim, but I don't and you're Indonesian, but I don't think so. We have European friends, and actually, yeah, that's what I'll say. Europeans don't seem to have any issue traveling all throughout Indonesia. In Jakarta and Jogjakarta. I mean, part of that is because it's a former Dutch colony as well, so maybe there's a casualness about that. But like the stigma only really exists in the United States and Canadians. Like it's as far as going to Indonesia. Yeah. So it's just travel through Indonesia. It's incredible. There's a lot to live. So safety wise, other than that though, there are some concerns.
Yeah, I mean, like petty theft, I think is a concern as well, especially because like there is poverty in Indonesia as well. So it's an opportunity to talk to your kids about like privilege as well, privilege inequities and things like that, and they will see that in different parts of the country that they visit.
There's a huge growing middle class. There's a huge middle class. So it's not like it's a poor country in any way.
No, but
yeah, but there is definitely petty theft. I think the biggest safety concern that probably families should know is all through this is an issue all through Indonesia. There's not really sidewalks, or there's very little sidewalks,
right?
And there are a lot of scooters and a lot of driving.
Yeah,
and so just we walk everywhere when we're in Jogja is short for Jogjakarta. When we're in Jogjakarta or we're in Jakarta or we're in Bali, like we walk a lot, and you just keep your kids close.
Yeah.
Crossing can be a little treacherous. If you've never crossed an Asian street, I say Asian street because I think it's the same in Vietnam, it's the same in Philippines. There's a sense of like you just have to own it, and people will stop or they'll slow down for you, but you can't hesitate. You must just commit and go.
They probably won't stop for you, so you just have to like make your presence known on the street.
They won't preemptively stop for you.
Yeah.
But they're not going to run you over.
No.
They'll slow down or go around you or what. But if you hesitate and you kind of stutter through it, or you're not sure of, you're gonna, if nothing else, you're just gonna make them really upset. So, but anyways, I think that's the biggest safety concern. Jakarta is also, the rest of the country is actually fine, I think, but Jakarta specifically has pretty bad air quality.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind. The water throughout Indonesia is not potable.
So bring a water bottle that has a filter, like the Grail that we love to use.
Yeah. Street food can be hit and miss. Street food is one of our absolutely favorite things to eat in Indonesia. In fact, it's one of those countries where street food, well, specifically Java and Lombok, maybe not necessarily Bali for street food. No, Bali too. Yeah, we absolutely love it. It's not very vegan friendly, not very vegetarian friendly.
Yes.
And you have to be selective about where you're getting your street food because there is chance to get sick.
Yeah.
I know
a couple times, but
then
again, there's also there's also like clinics that you can go to get treated, and so and the few that are like catering to foreigners and that can speak English. So
I think a lot of Worldschooling families will go to Thailand or they'll go to Vietnam and those types of places. I think those are great Asian countries to go to for World Schoolers. I think a lot of people go to Bali. A lot of world scholars will go to Bali and then leave Indonesia. They'll fly into Bali and they'll leave from Bali and never see the rest of the country. I think it's a miss. I
It's
think
my heart sad.
yeah. I think if it's our one mission, it's like
Go to Indonesia.
go to Indonesia.
Yes.
There's a lot to see, a lot of culture. It's amazing.
So I write a lot about Indonesia on my website. There's a lot of articles. So one that I want to highlight is I do have an article that has like tips for kids traveling in Indonesia that covers a lot of the things that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
So check that out.
So
Let's go on to the highlights.
Yeah, because we already talked a little bit about the highlights. So we on our list here, we start with Jakarta and Jogja. So maybe just we talked a lot about Jakarta already, but maybe is there other highlights of Jakarta?
Oh, you know what I like about Jakarta? And so Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony. It was like, and the Dutch came there not because they came there not to like take over the world, but they came as like it was a business opportunity. Mm-hmm. Indonesia has a lot of spices, cloves, nutmeg, things that were starting to be cinnamon, things that were starting to be like used in European cuisine. And, if you can get a hold of the cultivation process here, and if you are able to get a hold of that or control that, then there's so much more money to be made. And so that was what initially brought the Dutch to Indonesia. And then eventually it became like, no, we want to create a colony.
Yeah. And I mean, agriculture's always been a center part of that, right?
Right.
Between quinine and cacao and coffee and rice. And I mean, agriculture is always, and now palm oil is big.
So with that said, like in Jakarta, there's a historical part. You can still see like Dutch architecture there. Mm-hmm. And then in Jogjakarta as well, there's like Dutch architecture in central Java that you can find. Mm-hmm. And so I really like that part. And I like learning about, what Indonesia was like under Dutch rule, and then how Indonesians became empowered to like resist Dutch rule. And I think something that influences the culture in Indonesia is that there's like a sense of activism among Indonesians that I don't always see in other countries. And again, it's partially because I have such like a deep connection to the country, and I read books about it and talk to my family members. I still have family that's over there, but even now, like youth students are always protesting about something in Jakarta. And so that's what I liked. And then lots of museums and like just things to do in the city for families to learn about.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I think Indonesia, because there's a thriving culture there in a lot of ways, like what you said, and there's a pretty stable economy and middle class there. The government's been really stable over a decent amount of time now, that there's actually not a large diaspora of Indonesians around the world compared to like other countries. And so there's like this nationalistic pride for having been colonized for 300 years or something like that. I mean, really long time. The local languages exist a lot still, like the islands, the local islands, languages exist. Indonesia as kind of the unified language that was created by the Indonesian government. Mm-hmm. And so you go there and there's the influence of colonial Dutch, but it's still very Indonesian.
Yeah. Just for context, Indonesia has 13,000 islands. Over 6,000 of them are inhabited. And I think there's like several hundred different ethnic groups in Indonesia that speak their own language. So on the island of Java alone, there's at least like 3. Like the major one is Javanese, but there's Sundanese. And then within Jakarta, there's also Betawi. So
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, sorry, learning out about Indonesia.
We're gonna do super deep dives.
So the other things that you like. So we talked to kind of about the diversity, but what about like what other aspects of the culture might like families enjoy?
For Jakarta specifically?
No, like maybe around Indonesia in general.
I think nature. I think there's a lot of nature all around Indonesia. I think people tend to think of just Bali as a nature haven as far as the rice paddies, the jungles, the ocean. But I mean, it's all around. Central Java, for example, has amazing forests, amazing jungles, mountains. It's not, Indonesia volcanoes, incredible like lakes, and it's lots of coasts, lots of beautiful beaches. So I think the nature in all of Indonesia is something I think families can really latch onto as well.
Yeah, a couple of places that are highlights for me is like the island of Sumatra has. We went there. Now it's been 10 years, but it's still there. Like there's a national park that has like all orangutans there, and so you can hike and see like orangutans in the wild. And then
National Reserve.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the country, the island of Flores is like the landscape is so completely different. It's like more rocky and not as lush and jungly. And then it's also like a jumping off point for experiencing Komodo Island, which is where the Komodo dragons are from. So like if you're the type of family that loves learning about animals and learning about like nature, like those are some great places to visit.
And when you get up to like the Ahmed area, which is kind of, we'll talk about that in Bali more, but like there's also other like there's snorkeling spots all around Indonesia. They're absolutely incredible.
We haven't been to it yet, but there's some place that I want to go is Raja Ampat, which is like supposed to be a really good snorkeling area. Yeah.
I think, what about Jogja? Is there anything specifically about Jogjakarta that you want to talk about?
So Central Java, Jogjakarta is located in Central Java, and it used to be, okay, I'm going to geek out again. It used to be the center of power during the colonial period and even before that. And so what you can experience there is there's still like a palace there, like the Sultan of Jogjakarta lives in the palace, and he still has like ceremonial title, kind of like, the King of England. So what I like about Jogjakarta is like there's so much like culture that's still being cultivated, or like historical culture. You see like the traditional court dances, and you can watch like the traditional shadow puppet shows and listen to traditional gamelan music, which is like the percussion orchestra that is part of Indonesia. And I guess the other thing is there's a UNESCO World Heritage Site that's located outside of Jogjakarta that is the largest Buddhist temple or Buddhist structure in the world called Borobudur. So I think those are some good opportunities for world schooling families to learn about like culture and history. And what about you? What's something that you like about Jogjakarta?
I mean, I think the city layout is amazing for world scholars. I mean, you can find homes to live in that are in very residential areas. It's fairly easy to get around. There's lots of like beach, which are like kind of
pedicabs.
Like pedicabs. There's obviously the ride sharing apps. There's taxis. There's a bus system. So it's walkable in a lot of ways. It's a spread out city, so it's actually fairly large from that standpoint. So getting from different sections of the city, you'll definitely need to take public transportation. There's no subway, I don't think, or anything like that. So it's mostly just vehicles of some sort. We rented scooters the last time we were there, so that's kind of how we got around. which is really good. There's a thriving art scene there, modern art scene. So
Yeah.
lots of visual arts, lots of music arts. There's a thriving, because it used to be the cultural center of Indonesia. It's very similar to Kyoto, actually, right? Like it's like the
Yeah.
cultural center point of Indonesia. You can learn about batik making.
Yeah, we took a fantastic
Mhm.
Batik class. You can read about that on the website.
Yeah, it's it it's a great place. I
Yeah.
think it's a really, I think, enriching if you're really into the arts as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
It's just a cool see. It's also, it's not as humid as it is in Jakarta, I don't think,
Yeah.
because you're more center. Jakarta is actually right on the right off of the water, so there's a lot more humidity there. So it's not nearly as humid there. It does get hot though in the middle of summer, especially.
Yeah.
It's a lot lower. Like Jakarta has a lot of skyscrapers, like really tall skyscrapers. Jogja is a flatter city
Mhm.
as far as that goes. So I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just there's a energy I really like about Jogja. Every
Yeah.
time we go,
Yeah.
lots of cafes. Jogja has a ton. I mean, Indonesia in general has
Right.
a ton of cafes, but Jogja
Yeah.
has a ton of
And it
cafes.
speaks to like what Clint was saying with like the growing middle class. There's just people that have like disposable income that can like go and sit in cafes, and, like relax. There are other cities in on the island of Java that's worth mentioning. We haven't spent much time, or we haven't spent any time there yet as a family. So Bandung in is one that's kind of higher elevation.
Mhm.
And then Solo is really close, about probably about an hour away from Jogjakarta by train. And that's kind of similar because that was like the competing palace in Java at the time. So you'll see some of the traditional stuff in there too. And then Surabaya is like the furthest east on the island of Jakarta, on the island of Java, that I think would be worth visiting as well.
Mhm. Anything else that you want to mention?
Oh, there is something like, so getting around, because it's an archipelago, getting around from country or island to island usually requires like airplane, and you
Yeah.
can take planes. And there's a lot of like just local or regional airlines that will service those places. But you're taking some, if you're taking a flight, just be checking the flight times, because
Yeah.
it happened to us the last time we were in Indonesia. The flight changed from like morning to nighttime, and
Or worse, sometimes it changes from nighttime to
nighttime to
morning,
morning.
and then you might miss your flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just be aware of your flight times and just check. In Java, there is an extensive train system. So if you have a little bit more time and you want to like see the landscapes that Clint was talking about, taking the train is a great option.
You can literally take the train all the way from East Java all the way to West Java.
Yep.
So it's really incredible. And I think the other thing is, if you have time, if you are going to stay in Indonesia so you can get a sponsored visa for up to 6 months.
That's true. Yeah.
And then the normal visa is 30 days, extendable to 60, a one-time extension to 60 days. Otherwise, beyond that, you have to get a sponsored visa. And they're actually not that hard to get. There's companies out there that
Yeah.
will,
Visa agencies that will
yeah,
help you with that.
that basically you kind of pay them and they give you a sponsor for 6 months. But anyways, if you're going to spend longer time in Indonesia, I think the ferry system is also an interesting way to
Yeah.
go island hopping a bit. So you can go, for example, if you start in Bali, then you can go to Padang, which is on the edge of Bali, closest to Lombok, and you can take a ferry from Bali to Lombok. So the ferry system is an interesting way to visit some of the islands as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to mention, kind of nature and food related, is that Indonesia has an incredible, I mean, we talked about like the agricultural history is incredible, but there's all sorts of things that you can see grown. So you can do agricultural tours or whatever, but there's like, on the fruit side, you can see jackfruit and durian trees. You can see papaya trees.
Yeah.
You can see on like there's coconut, there's palm, of course, there's rice fields, there's tofu making plants. Tofu is a big export of Indonesia. Tofu and tempeh, which tempeh is a type of soy product. There's of course coffee and cacao.
Yeah.
There's just these incredible amounts of like agriculture. They grow tobacco still in Indonesia and sugarcane, and it's just I mean it's a rich. I think that's why the Dutch capitalized on that for so long. Like it just grows everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the volcanic soil and the humidity and the tropical conditions.
So there's just so much potential to like learn about those things while you're visiting. Yeah.
So
anything else you want to add? I know we talked a lot about things and we could go on, but let's and
we haven't even talked about Bali yet. So that's another episode. So yeah.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into worldschooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any worldschooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!